ever get that feeling where you feel like you ain't really where you wanna be in life? Like everything is crashing down all around without a reason why. Look, but praying I need a sign, but smoking to increase my peace of mind. It started to me.
What's up, everybody? Chris D here, comedian, author, most importantly, mental health advocate. I'm here with my buddy, local Philadelphia, New Jersey comedian, Michael Beavers. Michael, thank you so much for coming on today, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad to be here, man.
Yeah.
It's definitely a pleasure.
We've been rocking it a little bit this past year. We had a couple shows going on and did a couple shows together, building a nice little relationship.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you. How did you get into comedy? When did you start? Where did you start? All that jazz. Give everybody the 411.
So, I remember I first started like writing stand-up in like 2020. Like I started writing material because it was a pandemic and there was a lot going on in the world.
So you started in pandemic?
Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay.
That was when I first I first had the idea to do it when I was a freshman in college. When I was 18, solely because I thought that was funny. People thought that was funny. But realistically, I never really followed through on it because I didn't really have a purpose with it. You know, I was just because I thought it was funny. I was really immature. I wasn't really emotionally mature enough to really actually do it. You know, follow through on it. But then the pandemic started, and I was teaching. But you know, I just had all these ideas about like the humor, about humor and the things that I was seeing. And I just wrote, and then I was a long-term sub. Thought I was going to be done in the year, but like because the teacher had a pregnancy, and I thought I was going to do like a few months, but I ended up doing it for the whole year. So it took a while for me to actually get on stage because I didn't want to do it before I was done teaching. But I wrote that whole year. I wrote like maybe like 300 plus pages of material, you know, in that year, and then I got on stage for the first time. Philly's Funniest 2021.
Okay, down at Helium. That's
that was the first time I ever did. People say it was crazy for me to be like, I was so confident in what I had written that I thought that I could win, having never done stand up before in my life.
Man, I thought that too. I lost 3 times. I never made it past the first round.
See, it's great, and it happens, you know. But like, I really was like, all right, I was so confident. I was so obscenely naive and cocky. I'm like, well, if I don't win this year when it's my first time ever doing it, I'll just win next year, you know. And I was like, that's really what I was thinking. I was like, you know, and then I bombed. I did terrible. You know, I walked some of the audience my first time doing stand up, and it was like, you know, but I made an impression on people. I got people to laugh, and I immediately, you know, had built a rapport because there's somebody, I got a couple people that took me under their wing. Okay. You know, after that happened, they told me where I can go continue to do more stand up, and then I just kept doing more and more, and then I just stayed at it. And I was like, all right, I got to get to a point where I can get good. Yeah. You know, and it's just like, that's what kind of stand up is. It's like, all right, you got to bomb a lot, and then you just, you know, keep going until eventually you're not bombing. It's like, so, you know, I just felt as though I needed to get into that space where, you know, I had like this, I had a space where I could vent, where I could I could really deal with my own personal issues, my own personal, you know, feelings of, you know, like anxiety, and like I can kind of cope with them through being on stage and really connecting with people about it, and relate to people about it. And I mean, we talk about this, like it's something that's become like therapeutic for me. You know, I get into that area where I could just kind of just be myself and just be authentic and, you know, share elements of, you know, what's going on in my life or how I feel about certain things, my perspective on certain things. And, you know, I've gone, you know, a lot of places, you know, doing that, you know, being able to kind of just explore and just try to do comedy as many different places as I can, make as many connections as I can. Yeah.
Now, so you say you started Philly's Funniest and it didn't go good.
At first, yes, exactly. Okay. I did it the next 2 years, and you see that progress. Yeah, it's good. So I wanted to ask you this because every comedian they think of it differently. What's your definition of bombing? Of bombing. So bombing, I know that I'm bombing if I'm sweating. Like that's because when I bomb, like I know, like I'll start feeling. I'm like, all right, they don't like me. They don't like me. I'm like, I could feel like I could feel the stress. But it's like, I think it's when you bomb, I don't think there's no such thing as bombing like an open mic.
I love that. Okay.
Because like your open mic, just the purpose is the gym. You're supposed to work out. You're supposed to try new things. You're supposed to see what works. And you're in an audience. A lot of times, there's a lot of comedians. Yeah. You know, the audience is really not a viable like barometer or like a barometer gauge of what's actually funny based on how the audience is. Yeah. And they didn't pay to be there. Sometimes they just were ambushed with comedy. Sometimes they're not really fully paying attention. They have no reason to be invested. They're not paying customers. Mm-hmm. That were at the show. So it's like, it's not really a valuable, you know, gauge for, if the material was funny. So like what I think is like if you're in a show where like you're expected to make people laugh, and you don't, and you feel and you can there's discomfort among the audience because like they know you're trying to be funny.
Yeah.
And you're there to make them laugh and be funny, and they're expecting to laugh, and you're not you're not achieving the goal, like your objective of making people laugh. Like your job is to make people laugh, and you're really not when you're not doing your job.
Yeah,
that's what I consider like to be bomb.
All right, I love how you said that because with bombing, like you said, when you talk about people bombing like at an open mic, that's our workout room. That's like. Because you could be trying stuff that you've been doing for the last 3 years, trying to get 45 or an hour, but you just wrote a joke a couple hours and you're just trying it out to see if you get a hit.
Yeah.
If that happens to you at an open mic, say you were working on a bit and you did it at an open mic, and you didn't get laughs, does that stop you from working on that bit? Because I know some people who they wrote something, they tried it at like an open mic, it bombed, and then they trashed it. When I'm like, it works for different audiences. So whatever people didn't laugh at, like right now, that could crush when you do a show.
And it takes real fortitude to really just continue to do something that isn't funny. Like if you just have to be confident enough in it. So like there is a lot of material that I feel like I've done over the last several years. Like you guys know how long, like I'm coming up on 3 years in comedy.
That's awesome.
Soon. So like there's times that I have a lot of material that I wrote that I've said once or twice. Like there's a new material mic that Fergie's does that I would go there say for the first time.
Okay.
And that's where I got a lot of my bits that I do now from. Those started from these telling I was there. So there's a lot of material that I've said at these places that like didn't get the response that I felt like it should have, or I felt like it was gonna get, and I gave up on it too fast. But I don't think that's the right philosophy. I feel like if you really believe in something, you believe it's funny, and if you try it, and it's like, I feel like you gotta try it at least a few times in different audiences, different demographics before you can really like scrap it. Because like you have to have like faith in it. Like if you think something's funny, you gotta get it in front, of different audiences, and not just audiences with comics. Being an audience with just comics, that's a double-edged sword. Because sometimes your comedians know what's funny, but at the same time they're jaded, and they don't really have the most reliable perspective on what's going to be funny for a real audience. So it's like it doesn't make sense to just be like, oh no, they didn't laugh, I can't say that anymore. You gotta keep trying it. So like,
I agree. Ralphie May, he always used to say that material is never done, and that's like kind of crazy to think about because sometimes like if you have a tight 5 or a tight 10, like you're used to doing it because it hits. It's like your greatest hits, but you're looking at it from a maybe 30-year-old perspective. But then 2 years go by, and you're like, wait, I could add a little more to this joke that I've been doing, but it kind of makes the joke new. Which is crazy.
It's one of the things like I literally there's a joke that I was telling, I was telling this summer, that like it was one of the first jokes I ever came up with, when I first started doing stand-up. That I remember ever getting laughs from. And then I remember I scrapped it for a while because I stopped liking it, and then I realized I came back to it. I'm like, yo, that joke, it got laughs in the beginning, but it wasn't finished. I would be when I was new, like I would get laughs, but like I realized I wasn't telling finished complete jokes. So like I remember like I finished the joke, and it got to the point where like, all right, I can get like claps at the end of this, and I get applause. I'm like, all right, now I feel like it's finished. At least to a point where like, and there's still probably more that I could do. I can maybe even add more tags. Like I repeat what he said. Like there's a joke material might never actually like be done. There's always more you could add. But it's like there's a point where you can get to like where people clap. Like all right, you got to a point where like all right, this is funny enough to where people can really respect and appreciate, the whole process and the whole, like I guess the whole format and the metamorphosis of an entire joke. Where you can go through it and like there's like a whole, there's a whole story behind it. And they can really, I guess, get behind it and really, stay with it. So, so like there's material that like, a lot of times you're, I don't like doing like old material comics hurt, but sometimes you have to go back and do some old material because like, I thought of something. I gotta add to it. So like it's never finished.
And I think that comes with a maturity thing too. I mean, you've been in comedy, you're coming up on 3 years, which is good time, and that's awesome that you already have that mentality because that thing is just gonna like take off, and it's gonna make you kind of a better weapon than some other comedians, like you said, because like it's just weird because shows are so up and down, man. Like it is with material, you can do something at a show, like we said, and it doesn't hit, and then it kind of makes you feel some type of way. Like, is this really funny? But that's like a confidence thing with being a comic. It's like, I know this is funny. Like, this may not be the crowd, but I could work on this, and I know what I'm going to talk about is funny. Yeah. I just got to get it in front of the right audience that gets it, and then that gives you a motivation where, like, I knew it was funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where sometimes, like, you do it enough, and, like, you kind of start to find out what's universal. Yeah. Where it's like, all right, this will make everybody laugh. Yeah. You know, like, this will make everybody, you know, laugh. And it's like, and if you to the point where, like, you start to learn what is the most, you know, common and what's the most likely to really kill in any audience. Yeah. And then, you know, and you figure those out, and when you get it happen, when it, like, you tell that material, that really A material that doesn't do well, and then you'd be like, all right, that's when you could be like, all right, I feel like that means well, you know, it's the environment of the crowd. You know, I'm never gonna blame them in the moment, but I'm like, all right, this is where I feel like it's not necessarily me. It's like the environment, because like I think, you know, there's because and then there's sometimes where like, all right, this needs more work, and a lot of times you can be like, all right, I know this is a relatively new one. I've tried it in different audiences. Like, I got to continue to work on this, or maybe this isn't for this particular audience. Yeah. So it's like, you know, there's different ways to kind of interpret how the response is. But, you know, there's still as a comic, you know, the idea is like I want to put the pressure like on myself, and I feel like hold myself accountable for the material. But like, you know, and just be confident enough that like what I'm doing, the work I'm putting in these open mics is gonna, you know, come through.
It's gonna come through.
Yeah.
And maturity, you always have the greatest hits in the back pocket. So if you're trying out something new and it's not really there and you're losing the crowd, you're like, all right, well, I got some stuff in my back pocket that I could bring it on. I could bring this crowd back to life. So we're good. That's why I kind of like staying away. Like personally, I like staying away from like political or event stuff just because it's only good for a certain amount of time and then it's just played out. Like I feel like it's 2024 and people still make Trump jokes. I'm like, man, come on. Dude, it's been so many years.
It's like, but the thing about that, I mean, that's different because like he is coming back.
He is coming back.
So like, but
yeah,
the last 2023, 2022, you know, after it was going, I'm like, all right, yeah, like there's times where like people still doing like, you know, Obama's nowadays. It has a limited shelf life, you know, so it's like it does make sense that people don't want to that you know, you don't want to stick to those kinds of jokes long, and then sometimes they can be polarizing. Yeah, you know, so it's like you're not gonna get everybody on the side. So it's like, you know, I do, you know, there's definitely a lot of material that I have that I know being in Philly. Yeah, you know, I'm more when there was like I do this material and I think it's gonna do well. Yeah, but I know in a conservative crowd, like, I know some jokes that I need to stay away from. So you know, so I'm careful about, you know, what audience up there. Sometimes, you know, like it's some things that people aren't going to want to hear. Yeah, you know, that's part of gaining experience as comic is knowing, all right, these people aren't going to want to hear this probably. And then, you know, you can adapt and then, you know, do what they do, you know, say what they do want to hear.
Yeah, hell yeah. So I want to bring it back to Philly's Funniest. It wasn't the best show. How did you feel after that show? And then after you said you felt like you bombed and you didn't have a good set, how did you feel like, but I want to do this again?
So yeah, like that's
the hardest part, I feel, because if you have one bad show, man, you really like you got to get that out of your mind and just be like, all right, on to the next. Right. How did you get from that mentality to be like, man, I bombed, that wasn't good? Like, did you have a moment where you're like, maybe this isn't for me, or were you just like go mode, like, all right, cool?
I was go mode. I was like immediately, because I remember I did it. I was rehearsing. I was like, that was when I was bringing. I don't know if you did this when you were new, but I remember when I was new, I would have a script and I would just be like, all right, this is how I'm going to say it. Yep. I'm a script and I memorize it essentially. Yeah. And I know how to like, I knew that it's pause and I shouldn't be reading it off like poetry. Yeah. I got to wait for the responses, and I was still a little bit of a natural, but I'm like, all right, this is my first time doing it, and I got laughs. I got people laughing. There was definitely parts where there was discomfort. There was only like one person laughing, but then I was able to kind of capitalize on the one person laughing, make a comment on it, get everybody laughing again. Like I felt like I was a natural. I had a decent. So like, I'll joke about it being really awful. And it's like overall, you know, the way that I made people uncomfortable, you know, I walk some people, you know, I can qualify like as a bomb. But it's like I really do over exaggerate when I say how bad it was in reality. You know, I'll joke about it being really bad, making people leave the room. And another part of the next comic after me when I went up was a black dude. Okay. Right? And I was making fun of white people. Right? I was making fun of white people, and you know they didn't like it. Yeah. So the crazy thing about it is when I went off stage, you know, the next comic comes on stage, and the first thing out of his mouth when he gets on stage was, "Hey yo, let's get this out the way. I don't know that last nigga." Or you know, or I think he said my name. He's like, "I don't know Michael," but it's like I always say I don't know that last N-word. You know, and that gets people laugh when they hear that because I'm like immediately I was getting more people were laughing at me more when I was off stage. You know, that got probably they might have got the biggest laugh of the night. Him saying I don't know him, like I was like, and it was crazy.
That's funny too because that's a more experienced comedian mind since you were so new. But that dude was backstage. I don't know who he was or how long he's been doing comedy, but I love how he listened to your set and then in that moment he was like he thought of something. Like that's like that comic mind where like I feel like you can't turn your mind off. Like everything is material. So that's good that he just like came out and
and it was I really respected him. I didn't even know that he did it because I just got off stage. But somebody told me like, yo, he literally got like he advanced to the next round.
That's great.
Off my expense. So I was like, man, it did hurt a little bit.
Yeah.
But the reality was, I'm like, all right, this is my first time doing it. I'm gonna do I have other stuff that I've written. So like that's one thing that I have, but I had all this material that I have. I'm gonna go to all these different mics. I'm gonna introduce myself, and I'm gonna get better. So that next year I'll be good. So I'm like, you know, and I talked to him like one of the guys saw me that was laughing a lot. Like there was one black dude in the crowd. Like there was a point where he was the only person laughing. Like, and he kind of like, you know, he actually went to my school. Like he went to my alma mater. It was Drew Thomas actually. He was like he came over and then he was like he kind of talked to me about like, you know, I made one of the previous winners of Philly's Funniest really mad, you know, and I tried to, you know, pass things up and like, she didn't want to talk to me at the time. We cool now. You know, but like he told me like how I was like, dude, like you can't. This is like barbecue talk. This is not this locker room type. This is stuff we talk. This is not stuff we want to bring to the stage. And like he really got me like acquainted and really told me how I really should navigate the scene. Like there's some things I should say, you know, that would be like for comedy genre. If you know black rooms, rather than like Helium. And that's say the guy that said, "Oh, I don't know that last, and I don't know him." Him too. Like they told me where I should go. You know, I had them people that like immediately. There was a bunch of black comics there that was like when I was the first time. It was like we got cool, and it was like they knew the fact that I came out there and did that. They knew that I was serious about doing comedy. So it was like, all right, they respected it, and it's like, and as I started to go on, you know, obviously it took a while for me to get like get some material that were people like, well, I was good, but it was like I started getting better. I started getting laughs, and like I think about back when I was new, I was like I would get 1 or 2 laughs, and was like, oh, that was a really good set. I killed it.
I killed it.
I was like, I was like, I literally would be like, I listened to it back. I'm like, there was really like maybe 1 or 2 times that I actually got a laugh, and I was like, it would feel so good because there was a lot of times I'll get nothing. So it was like. You know, so that kept me going. Just getting any laughs kept me going. And then it got to the point where, all right, I can start to get consistent laughs. And then by the next year, when I did Funniest again, you know, I mean, I had started to get on a few shows, independent shows, like to get people to notice me, and I started to get respect in the community. And then, you know, I got past 2 rounds, and I got to the semifinals in 2022. Okay. You know, after being like doing it for a year, and that's when people knew, like, all right, I'm actually like,
they see that progress.
And then, you know, the next year after that. You know, I was a runner-up, so it's like that's where
that confidence.
So it's like
I know that I was meant to do this.
Yeah, exactly. So like I got to the point where I never thought that after my first time doing stand-up, like I was like, all right, I didn't win. I was like, and then it made me realize like, all right, that was probably irrational. People would tell me like, yo, I want your confidence to think because there's people that's doing it for like 10 years that don't think that they do it and they think they're gonna win. I think they had that confidence, but they no longer do. So it's like, for them to see me and have that confidence, they were like, oh wow, that's really, crazy. You wanted to do that.
That's a crazy, like I've had that like since I started. You just need that mentality where like you just are in go, like you just see everything ahead of you. Like you're just in go mode and you're just like, even if it wasn't a good show, you're just like, yeah, but I'm a good comic. Like I know that this is what I'm going to do. Like I'm going to keep killing it. I'm going to be getting better every single time I do it. Yeah. And like you kind of see stuff. I mean, I pictured some venues in my head where like I would drive past and I'd be like, I'm going to play there one day. And then, 2 years later I played it, which is crazy. But like, I wasn't even that moment when I saw that and was like, I want to play there. I wasn't ready to play there, but I had that focus from like, I'm going to play there. Like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
that's exactly what I'm thinking. I mean, because like with me too, I remember like when I first started, I didn't tell anybody I was doing it. Like I didn't tell anybody I was doing it because I was like, all right, I'm not gonna tell people I'm doing this when I'm bad at it. Like, and I remember one of maybe my third or fourth or maybe something the fourth open mic.
Yeah.
I saw somebody that I knew from school at the show, and I was like, what are you doing here? I'm like, nobody's supposed to know I'm doing this, and then I bombed, and I was like, that was really embarrassing. And I was like,
just what you're doing on your spare time?
Yeah, I was like, this is like, I felt like it was so shameful. Like, oh, wow, so you really think you're funny, and that's what you do when you try to be funny. So I was like, and I feel like if they were to see me now, it'd be a lot different. I could be confident, and it took several months for me to be confident to be able to tell people I'm doing this.
Yeah.
But I got confident enough, I got good enough to a point where like, all right, I can start to tell people about this, and I could stop just only posting it on close friends where I put all the comics, because I put just comics and people that know I do comedy specifically, like family, on close friends.
Yeah.
You know, at first, and I would barely post anything about it, but now as I get to the point where
Now you're good.
yeah, I could be, you know, I could publicize myself a little bit. I could promote myself a little bit because like I know.
I want to ask you about this because everybody has like their own different ways, and I like picking comedians' brains. How do you write? Like, do you just like have a time when you sit down and write? Are you a pen to a pad guy? Are you a notes in your iPhone guy?
I'm old new school, old notes in the iPad because it's just right there. It's like, because like, and then it's all at your fingertips because like having to carry around like. And there was a time where like I tried to do a notebook, like if I had a set list, you know, but it's like my handwriting's real sloppy and I don't like writing slow. I want to get it done. So it's like, and my thing with writing is like, the more you spend writing, the more you're just gonna second guess what you're writing before you get it on stage. So it's like, you can just scrutinize what you're doing for so long. It's like, my thing is like, I'll usually write down a premise, or I'll write down like specific tags, or I'll write down, you know, like how a progression should go, or like bullet points. But like really, I really write by going on stage at open mics and telling it, and then I'll be like, all right, I'm gauging where the laughs are, where the funny is, and then I'll tweak it and I'll rehearse and then I'll adjust it from there. Like I'll write down a little bit, you know, the notes, and I'll write down like the outline, but where I flesh it out is really on the stage. So like I'm really kind of loose with it. Like I don't just write, because some people I know have a specific joke and if they write it out and like that's the joke. And they say it exactly how they wrote it. My thing is like I have the premise and I say it, and then once I get to a point where like I'm confident enough and I know what I was saying is good, then it is being said the same way. And it's just like as though I would have written it, you know, like on a piece of paper. But like, I have a writing process where like it takes me a while to really get it down the specific way exactly how I want it said before like I'm like, all right, you know, because like I just don't like the process of just writing and just sitting. It's like it works better for me.
It's funny though, because like when I first started out doing comedy, I had like an actor's mentality where it kind of was like a script. Like I wrote every single thing out and I memorized it, and I tried to do it like exactly how I wrote it down when I was on stage. And then you know, you do that when you're new, and because you want to make sure you hit your punchlines and like wherever you're going to go with the stories. But I kind of felt like robotic when I did it. So that's when So me personally, like when I do a set, I kind of look at it like 4 squares, and I'm just like, I want to start here, and then I'll take you on this journey to like 2 and 3 block, and then the 4th block, I try to think of something to bring it back to like what I said in the beginning. So it kind of like wraps it all around, you know. So like if I talked about like, you know, a poop joke in the front, and then I just took you on this weird journey and stuff, and then like I ended it with like a punchline or, you know, something that relates to the stop. And but that's cool because it shows your progress in writing, because you went from it needs to be a script to now like I'm the same as you. I have notes in my phone, but like I'll either like write the topic and it won't even make sense. It'll just be like, you know, sex joke or like whatever. Like it won't make sense, or I'll write the punchline down, but I don't have anything else. But I'm like, this is fun. Because like it's weird. Like my mind is crazy because like I wake up because I like thought of a joke like as I was sleeping, and I just woke up in the middle of the night and I wrote it in my iPhone. The next day it looked like I was drunk typing because you know I was asleep. But it's crazy because I had so many good ideas that I never wrote down, and I don't like to forget anything.
Right.
I have shit that I will never use ever, but like I try to write down everything.
Yeah, that's the same.
I'm not a format beast where like I used to try to sit down and write like all the time, but I can't force myself to write because it just doesn't end up good. So it's like sometimes I'll have like 10 ideas and I'll write it all down, and then I could go weeks without writing one thing because I just don't think of anything. Do you have any of that?
I mean, to an extent, like, I want to get better about just going in and just like writing some more tags or just writing some more like ideas about things that I already have. Like, if I don't have anything new, then like, I mean, it's a lot of, I'm the same way as you, like, I have an idea, I try to get it down, but and I try to do it as much as I can, you know, but there are times where I'll go a few days without it because I'm working on stuff. Like, if I'm working on something specifically, like, sometimes I'll be so focused that I'm not really necessarily even looking for the new material. And like, but you know, but the way that life happens is meeting, like, life happens and then you get material from life. Like, sometimes life just happens in a way where it's like, if I just been doing the same old stuff and no new events, I don't really have anything new, but you know, but yeah, I'll do that, and it's like, I got to the point, like, I also felt good about it with the script, and I was like, I would just forget something, and I'd be like, oh no, and then I'm gonna lose something in the
Then
script.
it throws your whole set off.
So I'm like,
oh my, I went off script.
Right,
but that's what comedy is, though. Comedy is all script.
So it's like, I needed to be free-flowing and spontaneous, you know.
Because you could just think of something in the moment on stage that could make your set even better than you would have wrote down to begin with. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy in that sense of the way. That's why comedy is just, you know, it's so funny.
And it's one of those things where, like, there's times where I've taken, like, I remember, you know, I did like this Kensington joke in a competition in front of history. I was like, I'd never said that before on stage, and I was like, but I know this is funny, and I was like, I came with the idea being, you know, when I was like about, you know, about opioids and had surgery. So like I had surgery the previous day, and you know, I came up with the joke. I finished writing the joke after that, and it was like, it was a real risk, but for the most part it paid off, and then I already worked on it since then. But it worked. There was one other thing I said about being crutches, about like when I was on crutches when I first started doing it, you know, in the last round of the competition, where I was like, what did I say about people don't realize the triggering the phrase "break a leg" is like, and that's immediately, like, I don't think it ever got a better reaction than when I was just spontaneous. When I was just saying it in the moment, where I hadn't even written it, hadn't planned to say it, hadn't written it, hadn't had it as a part of the set list. I just was just like, I just came up with it. Like, and I find that a lot. Like, sometimes the first thing you say when you don't know a response is gonna come, it's when it's the funny. You say it again after it gets a response the first time, and you just didn't know how to respect the reaction. It's like, it doesn't get the same response. It's like that spontaneity is just the randomness and just the whole idea of just being something off the cuff. You know, it's really authentic, and people just vibe. But the audience always seems to kind of sense that, and they laugh at it. So you know, it's just that's why I just find being free flowing and just figuring out as I go is just more suitable.
That's exactly how I look at comedy. I feel like you have a script, you kind of know where you want to go, but then also you can't just be a robot out there and just like, because there could be something in the moment that just happens and you just have to do it and perform on stage, and it works out awesome. But I think we've been getting to know you a lot. This is awesome. I'm really digging this interview. I love just talking to comics and getting perspectives and stuff. I want to ask you 2 questions real quick, and then I want to jump into our first segment. So the one question that I have is, what's the best advice you got in comedy? And who was it from?
The best advice that I got in comedy. I mean, I've gotten so much advice. But I think it's just like about the idea of, like, you know, when you work, it's about like the idea of like when you work on just, when you're doing this for you and you're not trying to impress other people, that's when you can like really be at your best. I feel like, because like sometimes when I first started at open mic, I feel like, I gotta make everybody laugh. I'm at an open mic, like this has to be funny. You know, and it's like I wanna, you know, I gotta make people laugh, and it's like, or if it's like, I'm judging people based on how funny they are, but it's like, we get to the point where, like, all right, if it doesn't do well, it doesn't do well. And like, just being comfortable with failure. You know, I just like this idea of just like having to be, you know, comfortable with, and I've heard that from like a number of people, you know, or just like, but I think the person who I heard it from, it might be Aaron Bell. But like first, but it's just like this idea of just being comfortable, you know, with being willing to be out of your comfort zone and not necessarily care that something isn't going to be fun, isn't going to make you laugh. It's like you won't grow. When you won't grow if you're just doing the same stuff, like, because there was a time where, like, when I found my funny, first I would just do the same set, so many different places over, and I was like the same jokes that I know, and it felt good. Yeah. But I'm like, I really wasn't growing. And
but you weren't feeling it on stage though. Like you're getting the laughs and that you're doing your job, but then also you're just like, man, I'm kind of tired of doing this.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, and I feel like, and also since like people are tired of hearing this from me. Yeah. You know, and it's like other comics is like they're not, they lose respect for somebody who just does the same stuff.
That's like when you start doing comedy and you're doing shows and like you have like your family or friends who like know you do comedy, they want to see you, and then like they kind of see you doing like the same material, and then you're like, I mean, you come to the show, I'm trying to work on stuff, so it's like, you know, it's not gonna be different material every single time.
And that's the thing, like whenever I get people come to a show, I always try to do new, even if it's just one new person that's seen it before. I'm always trying to do new material because I'm like, yo, like I've worked on stuff. I'm like, I'm not gonna like, I need, you know, you should see that I'm not just gonna, you know, that's gonna be lazy on my part to just like to know that you're in the audience, haven't heard jokes that I've told before, and not gonna hear the new stuff I've been working on, even if it's not quite as polished or not as things like. I want you to hear something new, because then you're not gonna want to come back and see me again if you're just gonna hear the same stuff.
And that goes to knowing you're funny and like you know what's gonna work and what's not gonna work. I remember back in November I did the show at the Media Theater, and I did like 15 probably brand new minutes that I wrote for that show in particular, and I had people, but I knew it was funny, and that just comes to the point where like you know what's funny, you've been doing it, like you know what's funny, so at least like you're going to get some laughs from it, so you're good. And I had people ask me after the show, they're like, man, I haven't heard you do that before. I'm like, yeah, it's all brand new. They're like, I was like, I just wrote it for this show, and they were like kind of shocked that like it was new, but it's just, you know, you're funny. Yeah, you know what your material is, you know what will work. But that's awesome, man. My second question is, what's your favorite show? Right, what's the best show you had so far up to here? So you've been doing it for 3 years, so there probably had to be some hot moments for you.
Yeah, the best show. I mean, like the best show where I felt like I was really, really good, like really good. Let's see, I mean, there's a number that I can think of that comes to mind where like I feel like I was really, really professional. Like there was one show I did like with a bunch of old white folks in Yardley, Pennsylvania. Yeah. Where like I felt like I just remember everything I said was hit. I was like, you know, I mean, the only thing about it is like I remember I did more provocative stuff, like racial slurs towards the end, and like there was one woman that said she didn't like that, you know. But it was so much laughter, still a lot of laughter at the end, that I couldn't tell that there was less people that liked it. So like, you know, like that was where, you know, I had people telling me, oh, I like Drew Beck, you know, there was a headliner after me. And it was like,
that's always great.
Yeah, like you do it like, and it's like, you know, so it's like you feel like you're at, because that makes you feel like you're at that level, you know.
What's your I know I said two, but I got one more before the first segment. I can do what I want to post. What is your goal at the end of every show? For me personally, at the end of every single show, I at least want one person from the crowd to come up to me to shake my hand and say that they enjoyed my set. I don't care if there's 100 people or 50 people, like one person to come up and just say, yo man, that shit was hilarious.
Right, well, what I prefer, I would like, I want people that if they see me afterward, like if they're there, like they make eye contact with me, they be like, oh, I like you, good job. Like, you know, I don't want people to feel like they don't want to talk to me. Because like they feel uncomfortable or they didn't enjoy it. They feel like they want to avoid it. Because like, and there's sometimes that people are just shy. Like, they might have enjoyed your stuff, but they just don't want to talk to you. Like, but it's hard to tell the difference between like people who are shy, people who didn't like me. So it's like I want more than just one person. You know, but I want there to be like significant laughter throughout the room. I want there people to feel throughout the whole set. I want people to you know, like I want the applause to be genuine at the end. I don't want it to be just sympathy applause. You know, I want it to feel like, you know, I want people, the affirmation of people like, oh, I enjoyed your set, or to tell me about a specific joke. You know, when they can tell me about a specific joke, or I really like that joke, then I really feel good. Because then I know that they were really listening and they made a really strong impression on me because they can remember it and they can relate to it. So like that's what I really want, you know. So I've had that happen a couple times, like a lot of times, like the Kensington joke. Or you know that or like the some of the bits about, you know, some like sexuality type, you know, bits, or like pop culture, you know, things that like I talk about, like the Lion King. I joke about, like there's things that I felt that people can really relate to, or like they find, oh, I didn't think about it this way. I'll like, you know, somebody told me one time, somebody, no, like, I'll never think about that the same. Now that you said that, like that was one of the things, like that's so enjoyable. Like I had multiple people being like, it's so funny that like you know, some of the best. She told me, like she was telling me that she was critiquing as a comedy, like some of the best comedy is when something is like you see every day as everyday person, and then you listen to somebody's comedy and be like, wow, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Like that was one of the biggest affirmations for me as a comedy. Like she told me, like there was something that she had always thought about, and be like, wow, I never thought of it that way. You know, with the things, I think it was that joke, and like about white people and black people with souls, and like all types of things. But like all these things, like that was like getting that compliment. Might have been one of the best compliments.
I mean, that's awesome. I try to make my comedy universal, so it's for like everybody. Everyone has been in this situation, and that's always cool. Like afterwards, if someone comes up and they can relate to exactly what you're saying, that's always the best part. But this is a mental health podcast as well as a comedy podcast, so we're going to be hopping into the first segment. This one is called Mental Health Check-In. So basically, is there anything this week or weekend that stressed you out, how you dealt with it, and how you got through it? Me personally, Friday night, sometimes when I work out, and if I do like my chest or whatever, when I'm laying in bed, my chest gets like really tight, and I feel like it's really hard to breathe sometimes, so it kind of like messes my sleep up. So I didn't sleep really good on Friday, and I woke up Saturday and I was like, I had to be up early. I had a long day on Saturday, and I just felt like kind of dazed and just like kind of out of it, and just stressed out because I didn't get good night's sleep the night before. And I'm the dude who, if like I got to be up at a certain time, and if I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm like, it's 3:30 in the morning, I got to be up at 8. Like I only have this amount of sleep, and it just like completely throws my psyche off, and it just like I feel like I start the day negatively. Is there anything this weekend that happened to you or last week that kind of stressed you out, and how did you get over that?
Yeah, so there's a few. I mean, like I've been dealing with an injury when I'm 20 kilos for a long time. You know, and I'm at a point where like if I'm on shoes, like I can feel like I can put weight on. I can walk. So like, but I'm waiting until I see my doctor tomorrow. To get the okay to be able to walk around without the crutches. You know, or like a boot or anything like that. Just be, you know, just look be normal. But you know, like I had to go around a lot. Like I had a show, you know, on Friday in the afternoon in Philadelphia. You know, it was like for like some kids. That's another story. I think that it might relate to something else you asked me later. Okay. That was a weird show. But I had the show there, and then I went to link with some friends in North Jersey and New York, you know, where I was still on the crutches, and I felt like I could have been walking around. I was like, I'm trying to, you know, not do too much or before I get the okay, you know. So, but like, you know, I just had a little anxiety because like I remember today after doing a little bit of, you know, was putting weight on when I was going around Philly and New York and then North Jersey and the train and everything, doing a lot of movement yesterday. It started to feel tight again. Like where I was like, I felt like I was walking normal even without shoes, you know, yesterday and Friday, but like it felt tight again. I'm like, all right, well look, I don't want anything bad to happen to me. So like I'm always gonna have this idea that something bad can happen after I tore it the second time. And I had a third incident where like I had this bleeding from like putting weight on it, had the pressure against the boot. So whenever I feel something that's a little bit off and it doesn't feel normal, it's gonna be I'm getting it in my own head. How is this gonna continue to affect me, or is it not gonna feel normal? Because it's like, I want to make sure I don't regress or have any setbacks again, because like I've been doing this long enough. It's been since July of last year that I've been injured. I'm not trying to.
You've been on crutches.
Yes. Exactly. I think I might have been in the boot the first time.
The boot. But then
it's crazy to go from the boot back to crutches. Like, that's not how the normal, you know, progression of events or you know the progress isn't supposed to work that way. It's supposed to go backwards. So you know that's something that I think about that gives me, you know, some anxiety. And you know, there's always other things that I think about. You know, work can be stressful. You know, like I got companies going through changes and it reflects on us, and like it makes the client stress and there's us stress. So like that's another thing that I have to deal with anxiety, you know, why. So, you know, I always have things that, you know, throughout the weekend, this weekend, you know, especially that makes me, you know, self-conscious and really, you know, get a little bit in my own head about things. So especially, you know, work and this injury.
It could be a lot. Physically and mentally. Well, that's a great segue into our next segment, which is 5 questions. So we got 5 questions that we are going to ask you, and let's chop it up a little bit. First question is, how has comedy brought purpose to your life?
Yeah, I remember that. So that I feel as though it's enabled me to confront some of my biggest like insecurities.
Okay.
You know,
That's
some of
huge.
the things. Yeah, like before that, I remember, you know, the insecurities I had, they all kind of be brought out. I got them out through therapy.
Yeah.
I did therapy in college, you know, for like, you know, for a few years, and that was very helpful.
Okay.
Because that was like the only person, my therapist was like the only person felt like I could talk to about.
Did you just use like CBT therapy, just like regular therapy, just going in there, chopping it up?
Yeah, just regular talk. Yeah, just
Okay.
regular, just being able to just talk and vent, and you know. But like, this is the first time since doing comedy, this is the first time I feel like I can really get some things off my chest.
Okay.
I feel comfortable doing. And it's like there's things that like I can relate to, and I can talk to about like confronting, you know, like this identity, you know, conflicts with my own, you know, like my race,
Yeah.
you know, my masculinity, my sexuality, you know, these search and you know, these insecurities about like how, you know, what I'm doing or like my productivity or how like, you know, I am in terms of economic sense or like my upbringing and what that and how that, you know, I guess defines me. You know, these things that like, you know, I always really struggled and felt, you know, insecure or self-conscious about. This is enabled me to kind of like just attack it and just be able to get, you know, laughter from it, and be able to get people to relate, and then be able to just like get it off my chest that this is who I am, this is how I feel about it, and you know, share that that's how I feel. And people always really are willing to listen. They don't, it's not like telling them in a setting where like it's just you and friends and you're like, well, you feel like you're gonna be judged. Like, you aren't gonna necessarily like be judged, but it's in a way where it's like, all right, they respect you for being able to really, people respect you for being willing to share your truth like that. And then they can find, if they find humor in it, they can relate to it, and then they appreciate that. So it's like, you know, being able to kind of share those elements of, you know, what has made me feel, you know, negatively about myself has been really, you know, helpful. And I feel like hopefully it allows other people to maybe do the same. Like people can identify with what I'm saying, or maybe they feel the same way about their masculinity, about their, you know, black people, like their blackness, or like, you know, things with like, you know, how you grew up, or how you felt like you didn't really fit certain stereotypes, or fit certain roles, or you know, fit certain, you know, identities, or check certain boxes that you feel like you should check.
Yeah,
you know, like I want to be able to try to relate to people about that, and also, you know, kind of be able to talk and think about things that I think bother me, or that I feel strongly about, and passionate about, where I wouldn't normally be able to do it. Otherwise, it's just like I might tell people some ways, like my close circles, you know, be on. I don't really do social media like that. I'm not a big social media person. But being on stage, you know, I gotta talk about my opinions and how I feel about things. So it's like it's really enabled me to bring some of my thoughts, my perspectives, you know, and my views to like the forefront in an audience, and get to share those with people. Share my own, internal, issues with people in a way that I feel like it can be really useful and productive. So it's very purposeful.
Yeah, that's how like when I deal with generalized anxiety and panic disorder, I have my whole life, and it's just like I felt like I was always at my worst when I bottled stuff up and I kept it deep inside, and that's when it just was the worst. And I felt like I did therapy as well, and that was just like the best. Once I just talked to somebody about stuff, man, I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders. And it's crazy how something so simple that you can do, but like, you know, I was too stubborn to do. And a lot of people are stubborn to do because they don't want to be vulnerable or open about it. And that's what, comedy, man, it is therapy like that, because when you talk about your life or your struggles, what you go to, and you're relating that with the crowd, you're not just making people laugh, but like people don't feel alone. So that's
and it's one other thing I'll say is about is like there was a time where like that comedy was my therapy. I need to get back into therapy, but it helped me. I did get into therapy as well, and doing comedy and therapy was really helpful. So doing both very useful.
Great stuff. Number 2, when did you first become self-aware of your anxiety? So you said that you went to therapy and stuff like that. Did you always have anxiety, or did it bottle up at a certain age? For me particularly, it was like in high school was when I was at my worst.
Yeah, I mean, I started to feel like insecure about because like being around your peers in high school, so everybody wants to be like any form of like difference is not appreciated, or is not like or is not it's not it's not valued when you're young. Everybody it's all about performing. Like if you're anybody who's different is weird, and it's like who doesn't feel like, oh, you're doing this, like you don't act a certain way that makes when you're black that makes you white. Why are you acting white? Why are you acting in a way that's not black? You're doing this in masculine. You're not getting girls in a certain way. Like that, you're not being masculine. That's not. you know, it doesn't fit the ideals of what masculinity is, or it's like, you know, or what our sexuality is to be as black males, or it's like, you know, or you're doing well in school, you're in classes with these white people. Why are you? That's not traditional, you know, for us. Or it's like, you know, or you know, your performance or like in certain ways. It's like, oh, why are you, you know, in the classroom? It's like all these things, like, you know, and how you dress, how you act, how you talk. All these things are judged in a way that makes you, that just builds on your own. It allows you to just be more, you know, insecure about things, and self-conscious. So it's like, you know, that I started feeling that like probably like in middle school, maybe for like the first time, you know, like middle school where it started to get worse, and then like in college, you know, I didn't necessarily feel like I belonged there, you know, the college I was at, so I felt like a struggle there, and like so those years, you know, high school and college, you know, middle school to college, I definitely felt a lot of, you know, this really. Self-doubt. Exactly. That's what it was. You know,
that's crazy how I felt in high school too, man. Because like, I had a weird life, man. I was a cancer survivor, so I battled cancer from 4 to 8, and like my childhood was like in a hospital. I'd be there weeks on end. Like I had chemotherapy, and like I could have died when I was 4 years old, and I just had this perspective of like that's why I wanted to do comedy, because it's one thing that I loved since I was a kid, and I was just like, man, I'm gonna strive this, and then I'm gonna start doing what I want to do, and I'm gonna help people because I want them to not feel alone, and I want them to feel like they can do whatever they want. Because when I was in high school, I started comedy in high school, so I did my first mic when I was 17, and man, people ragged on me. Like they heard about it because I think I posted a picture from like a flash phone like on my Facebook, and it was so blurry. It was such a bad picture, and like kids were like, but that was me. Like from 17 years old, I'm like, I'm a comedian, bro. Like that was like my mentality, and I just had this mentality of like, I'm gonna be a comic, bro. Like this isn't a joke. Like this is my passion. This is what I want.
They didn't see a video. They saw a picture.
Just a picture, and it was on a flip phone. And I remember I went in homeroom the next day, and like people were like, "Oh, I heard you did comedy last night," like blah blah blah. And then you know, they kind of like busted my balls a little bit, but I just was hyper focused on like, this is what I'm gonna do. So like, you can drag me now, but like, I know this is what I'm gonna do. And it's just funny all these years later doing comedy, and like, you know, they're the first ones that ask, yo, when's your next show? Some people came to my shows, and it's just like, it's nice to kind of have that validation where you're like, bro, I told you this back then, like, you know, and
that's what's up.
It is what it is.
Yeah, because I mean, like, because people be like, oh, they see you trying to do something different.
That's what it is.
And it's like, all right, well, I mean, and I guess they're in this mindset of like, all right, you need to fit a certain mold, or like you need to act a certain way. Like, why are you doing this? So it's like, but now as grown-ups, like people find out I'm doing it now, and it's like, it's different, and it's like, wow, I can never do it. They're so impressed. You know, it's not the same as like. And
that's what, like, I don't, my family, I have no ties to the entertainment industry at all. Like, nobody knew anything about how to get into it, so like I grinded and did everything myself, and I have that because like I started at 17, I googled open mics, like I did everything all myself, and as I did it throughout the years, it progressed. Obviously, it became like amazing, and I got all these opportunities, and I get to do a lot of cool stuff, and but yeah, I always felt like an outcast, like, but I didn't care. Like I was like, yeah, man, like this is what I do, and I kind of didn't care what other people thought about it. And even like I went to community college, and I was a theater. I'm like, oh, theater's going to help me on stage. It's going to help me project. It's going to help me hit spots and memorize lines. And I'm just like, I was so hyper focused on like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do everything that I want to do to make it happen. And you know, but it's just funny at my lowest, like when I was so anxious and like just had all these panic attacks. That's when like I was chasing my dreams and what I wanted to do. So I think that's cool that you are the same, where you were just like, yeah, all these people are like, man, why are you doing this? Why are you in this class? Why are you acting like this? But you're like, nah, man, this is what I'm going to do. I'm a comedian, like, and I'm happy to be that. So that's awesome that you have that. Question number 3, do you find irony in performing with anxiety? Because, I mean, I can probably say 95% of comics all deal with some sort of anxiety or mental health issues. And it's crazy that we do the craziest thing to do if you have anxiety or if you're nervous. Is stand in front of strangers and try to make them laugh. And why the hell are you doing that?
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely ironic. Because there's things that like I wouldn't tell anybody in any other setting, but now the fact
Are you
that
going to tell random people?
Telling random people
Yep.
all types of business, all
Yep.
my business. And it's like it's almost more comfortable to be in front of strangers in front of people you know.
That,
you know, and it's
that is crazy because I really feel the same way.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I have like a core group of best friends that I feel like I could be completely open with and like be my authentic self, and family obviously, but like I probably some of friends and family learn stuff about me that they didn't even know at comedy shows. Because I'm just open up there and they had no clue. It's just funny that you're like that. But
yeah, so it's like so you said they don't even know they say it was nothing.
so like you said up on stage, like there's some things about my life that some of my friends or family didn't even know because I didn't tell them, but then I'm up on stage telling jokes and telling stories,
Okay,
and they're just like, what the hell?
That happens to me a lot. That happens to me a lot. When I remember telling them stories about how I got into a fight for the first time. I wasn't really even much of a
You got
fight.
to a fight, Michael?
Yeah, it was like, so when my parents went down, I'm like, was that a real story? I'm like, you know, and be like, yo, and I have a lot of things and be like, wow, this really happened. Like, yo, this is how, like, and I have a lot of material of people that I know. And be like, oh, wow, that happened for real. Like, this is, and it's like, and because I'm like, oh, why would I tell you that? Like, why would I tell you all these things? It's like, just in general, you know, it's like, why would I, especially the parents and family?
Yeah.
Like, there's definitely a lot of things. Like, I'm not going to tell you things as you're my parents.
I'll tell you something, man. There's nothing more funny than when you got family and friends in the crowd and you're like telling sex jokes and just dumb stuff that you did, and you're just like, what the hell?
I try to stay away from the sex. I did one where I did a Valentine's Day show where it was like all love is gay.
Yeah, you had to.
And I was like, it was all of my gay like material. That
Yeah.
was like, it's not because I'm not gay. It was like I've had experiences and I have a perspective on like being LGBTQ, and I've had like experiences that would be considered in that realm of gay. Even though but it's like it was really I was like, I would have definitely not invited them to, but they knew I had a show. I wasn't going to tell them no, you can't come.
They did it. Yeah.
So it was like so I was like, all right, well, you're gonna have a different perspective of me after this. You're not gonna look at me the same.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
The next one, man. How do you cope with anxiety on and off the stage? So for me in particular, I get like the day of the show, I get like butterflies in my stomach, and I guess it's like anxiety, but it's good anxiety. Like there's good and there's bad anxiety, but like for me, that's validation that I give a shit about this. No, I'm nervous about the show. I want it to be the best show. I want people to get their money's worth. They're paying for a ticket. Like I gotta do my job and make people laugh. And then off the stage, if I had a bad show, I try to rub it off and just act like it's cool, whatever. On to the next. But sometimes I do get in my head, or I critique my set. I'm just like, oh man, I could have done this better, and I hate watching tapes. I don't like watching myself at all, bro. Like I cringe. Like I'll upload a reel, I won't watch it. Like obviously, like I'll edit it and put it up, but I hate watching myself. It's just awkward as hell, and I don't like it.
Same. It's really sometimes especially when like there's parts where like you could have delivered something better, or like you feel like you're awkward. So like that's tough, but it's like. I get the same anxiety. I get like a little bit, just be like, all right, because sometimes you're not entirely sure who the audience is going to be. That's where it's like it can be a little bit questionable. Like, or you haven't been in front of a certain audience before, or it's like sometimes you know something, or you know something about a certain audience that might make you a little nervous about it. But I think that's normal. Like you're supposed to be a little bit nervous, and then you get up there, you feel confident enough, like. Do these jokes and they'll be like, all right, they are gonna laugh.
Bro, once the first laugh, everything immediately.
Yes.
You're perfectly fine and you're in your bag and you're just laughing.
Exactly.
And, like you feel so good.
That's how you deal with
coming
it.
off on stage. It's like I always like tell people it's like you feel like you're high without being high. You're just like your whole body is excited. Like you feel good. Like it's just an insane vibe that you get when you're off stage.
So like I deal with it is by like. The more prepared I am, the better I feel. So like the more like I just write my set list out, and if I know I'm comfortable with it, and I know I have a progression, because like sometimes it's been easier. Like these last few months, I'm doing so many materials about being handicapped. I've had really a lot of similar the sets are doing. There's a lot of material that I'm repeating, and I know I feel comfortable with. But like before that, or if I'm like in a position where like I have a lot more to talk about, and be like, all right, I can do this. And it's like, when I have more doubt about exactly what I'll say, or be like, if something isn't working, I don't need to go, then that's when I feel like I have more self-conscious about, all right, my performance. But, you know, and then there's times that happens where I'll be like, I've definitely missed opportunities on stage to riff on something that would have happened, and I'll be like, that eats at me. I'm like, wow, I could have said this in the moment, I would have got a huge laugh, and I missed it. You know? So it's like, you know, so like, you know, in the moment it does feel, you know, feel good, but overall, like usually, like I've gotten to the point where like, I get enough laughs that I feel good about myself. I'm confident. I'm getting there.
I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect show. So you can critique yourself as much as you want, but I feel like there's still going to be a punchline that you missed, or there's still going to be a part where you're like, oh, I could have messed with the crowd a little bit more. There's always going to be that
too long, or like I did one extra tag, I could have cut it short, or maybe I should have added this, I forgot this tag. It's to do 100% perfect, like that's difficult. Like,
one of when I asked you about like what was your best advice from comedy, I got a lot from like a lot of comedians over the years, but like when I was 17 and like a teenager, like my main thing was like going to stand-up comedy shows. So like anybody that was in town, I'd be going to see and stuff like that. And Bill Burr is one of my favorite comedians in the world, and I actually got to meet him. He was in my hometown, and I knew the security, so after his show, he was like doing like an autograph signing, and you know, I got brought up to him, and the security guy's like, "Oh, he wants to be a comedian," and like he actually talked to me, which like he gave me like 10 minutes of his time, which he didn't have to do. I was 17 years old and like just asking him like about comedy, and he was just like, the best advice I could give you is nobody knows that you're bombing. You're the only one in charge of your material, so nobody knows you're bombing unless you say on stage that you're bombing. I think that's like my biggest, I see that sometimes with comedians, if they're on stage and like, oh, this isn't going good. Like nobody knows, like you're in charge of the show. So like nobody knows you're bombing unless you tell yourself you're bombing.
It is one of those things where it's interesting because like, you know, if because sometimes people is paying attention to be like, oh, the laughs, they don't know how much they're supposed to laugh.
Exactly.
Like they might think you're just like, oh, the fun is gonna come. They expect it to come, and then it's like, if you can expose that, man, like, and it's easy to do because I've seen people that, oh, this isn't going right, like, and I'm like, I wonder if they would have felt the same way if you hadn't pointed it out.
Exactly.
I do wonder that, but like, there's sometimes I can feel like you can feel the discomfort. Because it is silent and people aren't laughing.
But
like, oh, man,
I think comics go into it where they're like, the laugh is the only form of appreciation. But I just want a reaction, like a, or ooh, or like, you know, just a reaction. Because at least a reaction to what you're saying. Unless like it's up there and it's crickets, then obviously that's bad. But like sometimes just because someone isn't laughing, it doesn't mean that they're not enjoying it. Because I feel like I've been at shows where I see one dude in the front row and I feel like I haven't made him laugh at all. And then he's the dude at the show like, hey man, you had a good set. I'm like, really? Because you didn't laugh the entire time. So like,
sometimes you wonder if that's how I wonder if they're just patronizing. You know, it's like, because I'm like, all right, if you didn't laugh, how am I supposed to know that you really actually enjoy? That's one of the things I have trouble doing. Like, I can't really look at people's eyes for extended periods. I can maybe glance at them and see, but I can't just stare like I'm having a conversation, maintain eye contact, because like if there's one thing I say that they don't like, that's gonna mess me up. That's gonna have me messed up.
It's hard too when you're on stage because there's a spotlight, especially like if you're playing Helium, dude. You only see like maybe 3 people in the front row because the light is right in your face. So like it is kind of hard to keep that. But this is my favorite. This is the last question. What is your worst show and experience that you had on stage?
All right.
Because we've all had them.
Yeah.
I'll start if you want. When my first time I ever did comedy, when I did that, when I was 17 and I did that open mic at Comedy Cabaret in Northeast Philly, the dude before me bombed. And I'm not saying like bombed, he started cursing the crowd off because they weren't laughing at what he was saying.
The worst possible reaction.
And I was 17. I was going up there like making poop jokes and like talking about 17-year-old bubblegum bullshit. And I was just like, oh, I was so scared. I was petrified. And I'm like, yo, he's cursing these people off. He's a grown man, and now like a 17-year-old is going up there to try to make these random people laugh. And
did you comment on the situation at all?
I went up there, and I think my comedy mind, the first thing I said was, I think he's getting arrested in the parking lot. That's like what I came up with at 17. But it was a joke. He obviously wants to get arrested. I'm like, yeah, I think he's getting arrested in the parking lot. They're like, ah. And I got like one little joke, like one laugh. I'm like, I'm good, baby. And then I did my set, and but I think that was one of the worst show experiences I ever had in my life, just because it was my first time, and I was so scared. Because I've never been in a situation where a comedian like attacked the audience like that, so it already made for such a hostile environment. So I was scared to death. And I remember my dad told me, it was like, hey man, you could go up there right now and see if this is for you, or we could leave right now and no one will even know that you're ever here. And I'm like, well, I gotta go up there and do it then. And I did it. And over 10 years now, I'm still doing it, which is great.
Nice.
But what about you?
So
worst experience?
I got two experiences. I'll briefly do one. Like I did one the other day, just this Friday. I thought I was gonna be talking to high school kids. Okay. 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. Yeah. You know, about to graduate or whatever. But you know, it's like for this program, for this college that they're doing, they're hosting kids for the thing. When I get there, it's actually 11 and 12-year-olds. Okay. So I'm like, oh no. That's a really significant difference in what I feel like, because I gotta be clean. Anyway.
Yeah, you gotta be clean.
Like that changes what I would say, and now it's like, I mean, it was overall, it was a good experience. It was fun, but it's like, the fact that I had to change everything, and there was some things that like the adults in the room were cracking up at, but the kids just weren't laughing. Sometimes they were talking during the middle of my set. Yeah. You know, they were like, you know, doing it was hard to keep their.
It's like an open mic in Philly.
Yeah, no, it is. But it's like, you know, it was like people weren't like there's some things that they didn't understand. So that was like, and I was sweating. That's the first time I sweat in a while. You know, where I was like, all right, these 11 and 12, they're tough critics. You know, but the worst experience that I probably feel like I've had in the last. Was the time where like I had my fraternity brother, he was having like his 50th anniversary, and I remember as a member of the fraternity. Okay. He was like, he knew I was a comedian, like, oh, I want to see you do, come do, you know, it's my 50th anniversary, come do some comedy, I will pay you, da 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 da. And I'm like, all right, say no more. I'm not gonna turn down.
You had to get paid. Yeah. Because we don't get paid.
Yeah. I was like, say no more. I'm like, yeah, I'm in there. And you know, I get there and I'm like, yeah, I some, you know, the dress code is like everybody's, it's like a gala, it's like a formal event. Yeah. You know, all these people here, and this is members of my fraternity, and we have a sister sorority. Okay. Who was like, you know, we're associated with, we're constitutionally bound to. Yeah. It's like all these people that, you know, in my fraternity and sister, you know, the constitutionally bound sorority that we're associated with. So, you know, I'm all dressed up. I don't want to be just dressed like a regular bum comedian, you know, looking less dressy than everybody else. But I get to the show, and, you know, I show up I'm like 30 minutes late. Well, I'm like 20 minutes late. So I'm worried, because I got another show afterwards. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm worried I'm gonna miss my set. I'm like, oh man, I'm late. I'm rushing to get there. But this is black people. So I turn out to be 20 minutes early. I'm actually 20 minutes early. And now I'm like, all right, when is the show gonna start? Because I'm like, I need to get to another show. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, now I'm just stressing. I'm like, all right. And then eventually they start, you know, the MC from the front, he's like, oh, hey, yeah, we're going to do this show now. We're going to start the show, please. Everybody take their seats. And then the guy whose 50th anniversary is, he just starts singing from the back. He starts singing a weird, like a fraternity song that like nobody really even knows. Because all the people that he pledged with, most of these people are dead. They're like 50, I mean, he's not just 50 years old, he's 50 years in the fraternity. He's like 70, something like that. You know, so I'm like, what are you singing right now? Nobody knows what you're singing. We can't sing along. Like, this is the fraternity individual song for your chapter. Like, we don't know. So I'm like, all right, what is going on? And plus, we're not entertained because you can't sing. You don't sound good. Like, this isn't something we were like, yeah, go ahead and sing. Because, you know, this is like, all right, this guy, he loves attention. This fraternity, but he just loves attention. That's what it is. So he's singing from the back, and that's how the show starts. I'm like, all right, he sings this fraternity song. Nobody knows from the back. Next thing, it's a guy. He's on stage, and then they kind of clap, and then the next thing is like the MC goes up again, and I was like, all right, now he's gonna sing the Negro National Anthem, which is which y'all know if you know is just lift every voice and sing. Okay. You know, so I'm like, with all due respect to lift every voice and sing, the Negro National Anthem, it does not slap. It does not hit. Like nobody would choose that as a Negro National Anthem. You know what I'm saying? Like we would much rather hear Dreams and Nightmares or Before I Let Go by Frankie Beck. Like nobody's gonna be in their car and be like, you know what? They get hit with the aux cord. Let me hear that James Bolin Johnson. And just turn it on. Talking about lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven. Nobody's gonna listen to that shit. So he sings all three verses. Like, and we're supposed to know this. This is return. We learned this when we was online. We learned this, but like, we don't. People weren't singing. Like, I guess people either didn't know it or they didn't want to sing it, and it wasn't entertaining them. So that was that part. He sings the whole Negro National Anthem. Next thing, all right, so we decided now that we're gonna bless the food. That's what we go. Oh, no, he didn't go. We're gonna say a prayer. That's what he said. He's gonna say a prayer.
Is this the comedy show?
See, it's not a comedy show. It's not a comedy show, and that's the thing. So he goes, he says the prayer, and then literally, I remember towards the end of the prayer. And the other thing about this thing, like the program, it just says. Let me look at what the program says, because the program just says it doesn't tell you what's going on. It doesn't tell you what exactly you're going to see. It just says, Act 1, a long road. That's all people see. That's all people see on the program. They have no idea what they're getting. They didn't know they was going to get some random song from dude, lift every voice and sing, and with the prayer. So then, literally towards the end of the prayer, he looks at me, the guy who's hosting, he was like, oh, Beavers, you're next. And I was like, you mean to tell me you about to bring me up after Grace?
Oh my God.
You got to warn, like, because this is probably has to be the coldest room I'll ever come up in. I'm coming up after a prayer.
You got singing prayers and now
singing prayers and now it's comedy. And then so I go up there, and the introduction I get, he doesn't give me any credits. He just says we're gonna have the comedy of brother Michael Beavers, and that's it. So I don't have any credits or anything there. And then it takes me a while because I gotta get up there. I'm clickety clacking up on stage, and then I gotta address the situation. So I tell my little jokes about my situation, and like, but realistically, I'm ambushing them with comedy. They didn't know they was getting this shit. Excuse my language. They didn't know they was getting comedy. So I'm just telling these jokes, and I'll tell some jokes that hit really well in normal situations, but like, you know, and I tried to riff on the situation a little bit, how like they started late and how like they didn't know it was gonna get comedy, and you know, in a little bit. But realistically, I don't know if any of my jokes would have actually worked. Yeah. Maybe I would have did a little quick riff about my situation, but like riffing probably would have worked better than anything. Just how absurd it was to bring me up like that.
We've all been in those gigs, man. That's just where you gotta get up there and do your thing.
Do your thing, yeah. And it was only 3 to 5 minutes, so I did my thing. But the thing about it is, that made it bad is like sometimes you can reassure yourself, be like, these people will probably never see me again. Yeah. But the thing about it is, these are my fraternity brothers.
So they're going to see you.
So they're good to see me. Like, this is how you spend your time.
He hasn't progressed since I seen him a year ago.
See, I mean, some of them hadn't seen me at all. So I'm like, yo, man, like this was, and I know it was bad because like one of the people like I was sitting with, it was in the band, like which was weird. They had a band, but they was sitting in the back. They had somebody just playing bongos in front. They wasn't even doing it. But like she said, like I could never be. I really respect what you do. I know she didn't tell me how much she likes. She was like, oh, you gotta be really brave to do what you do. You know somebody's funny when you bomb, but somebody tells you that you're brave and not funny. You told me that, oh yeah, you gotta be real brave. I couldn't do that. I could not do what you just did.
That and it was like,
yeah, it's awkward. And I knew it was funny because like, I was making the whole table laugh. About riffing. I mean, like just joking about the whole situation to myself. And people that came up to me and asked about it. Now, everybody I tell that story to, they usually laugh about how crazy it is. Like to have me come up in there just cold and just tell jokes. People that don't know me, that don't care, didn't pay for comedy, that had no idea it was getting comedy, and brought me up after Grace. It was just a really wild situation, and I felt. The only thing that makes me feel better is just being able to talk about it. Yeah, I felt really bad in the moment. Like getting off stage, I'm like. I did get a few laughs. I heard a few laughs, a few chuckles here and there, and some people at the table reassured me that they laughed at things, but like I did not feel good about myself. Yeah, you know, it was really awful.
That is a hell of a bad show, man. But we're about to wrap this bad boy up. Thank you so much for coming out. I appreciate it, man. There's probably going to be people out there that are going to be watching this that want to get into comedy or entertainment. What is anything that you would say to somebody out there who's maybe a little too anxious or doesn't think that they can do comedy out there? What's a little bit of advice you give them?
I mean, like the advice I have, like there's gonna be down moments. There's gonna be experiences where you question yourself. Like you have to keep the only solution to those down moments is to keep doing it. Yeah. Like you have to get better so that you don't because you experience in the bad, you don't want to do it again. So like the solution is you have to just keep improving, and you really never finish. You know, a joke can never be necessarily not ever done. You know, like you can always improve the set, you can always add more, and it's like it's really you might have an end goal, but it's like realistically the idea, the goal that you have is just you don't stop. You just gotta keep going.
I think that's the best advice you can give because I think people think that one open mic leads to one big show. One big show leads to a Netflix special, and that ain't the case at all, man. You gotta keep grinding, and you gotta keep going.
I would say go to as many places as you possibly can, meet as many people as you can. Like some people go to the same places. I feel like you gotta just diversify your portfolio in terms of
I think diversifying is probably one of the biggest things that are going to get you ahead in comedy right now because people always put that 1,000 hours in before like you do this or that, but like I feel like putting yourself into situations and the different crowds and the different places will really just make you a better comedian, because you're just going to be put in all these different scenarios with different crowds, different audiences, and it's just going to, at the end of the day, make you a stronger comic. And that's just what you got to do. Just get in there, go in front of different crowds as much as you can, and just keep working. So, only thing that you can do, man. And you gotta love it. You gotta love it. Yeah. Because you're not just gonna be doing this, you're gonna be spending money to be doing this. Driving the shows, wasting gas money, not getting paid, but it's all about that experience.
It's all about the grind, it's all about the experience. And like at the end game, and you will eventually be able to turn and be able to get paid from it. Yeah. Be able to have those experiences where like it does compensate when you get it back. It's like that's the goal. You have to be comfortable with just not getting the return initial return. Like it's an investment that takes a while to see the return on, but it's like eventually you got to know that it will it can pay off. You just got to continue to just get better. Just always think that you can always improve, and you don't do that by just getting on stage. Just get on stage and do it, and then keep doing it.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming out. Yeah. Let these people know where they can find you on your social medias.
Yeah, absolutely. So just if you just type in my name, Michael Beavers, you'll find me pretty much anywhere. Instagram is technically Leave It to Beavers. If you type that in, there's a few underscores and dots in there, but they'll come up if you see it, Michael Beavers, if you type that in. I got a link tree on there with some shows. I got some of my flyer shows, where some shows are gonna be at. I'll post the show where I'm gonna be at. And I have I got a YouTube link on there. I gotta upload some new footage. I'm waiting to do that. But all that stuff is mostly on Instagram and Linktree. So definitely you can feel free to check me out there.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Subscribe, hit that like button, hit the notifications, and we're going to keep coming with this good stuff. So we'll see you soon.
Really important. Appreciate y'all.
I made a promise to myself and never make another excuse. And if you get up in my way of what I want to do, then I'm cutting you loose. Like, I got nothing to lose. I got nothing to lose. I got nothing to lose. Yeah.